If you're making the switch to plant-based eating, beans should be at the top of your list. They are nutritional powerhouses. They're high in complex carbohydrates, fiber, zinc, iron, and protein. And they've been known to lower the risk of cardiovascular disease, diseases of the digestive system, and the risk of type 2 diabetes. When you're in the grocery store looking for beans, you're going to start seeing them everywhere. They're often in two sections. They're in the canned goods section and also in the international food aisle. And you'll find beans from all over the world. There's sort of endless variety. There's things like lentils that cook really quickly, to large beans like large lima beans, black beans. There really is no end to the variety and textures that are available. In addition to the canned and dried beans that you might be familiar with, there are products like hummus, refried beans, and pastas that are made from milled bean flours like lentils and chickpeas. So generally, beans are available in three forms in the grocery store. Canned beans that we're all familiar with, dried beans, and frozen beans. I always forget about the frozen beans, but when you go into that section of the grocery store, you'll see frozen prepared limas and edamame, which are great sources of protein, and they're so easy and fast to make. When you talk about convenience, you can't really get any more convenient than a can or jar of beans though. They're fully cooked, and you just have to open them up, put them into a pot, and add any seasonings you want. A lot of people I know just add them from the can onto a salad or into a soup, and it bulks up the amount of fiber and protein in a dish instantly. I frequently get asked about cooking dried beans. I tend to cook dried beans a lot at home. I've just sort of gotten into a rhythm, and it lets me try beans that aren't available often in canned form. And so it sort of has broadened my horizons to the beans that are out there. I have a few tips for cooking dried beans that might help you out. So most of the beans in the grocery store that are dried were picked a year or two before. If you look on the side of the bag, it should have a date that it was dried and packaged. The further away the date was, the longer you're going to either have to cook it or soak it. The larger the bean, the higher the chance you should pre-soak it before you cook it. A bean like a lima bean, if you pre-soak it overnight and cook it, it's going to cut down on the cooking time dramatically. Some dried beans, like lentils, shouldn't be soaked at all. They cook really quickly from their dried state. Some lentils take only 10 to 15 minutes to cook, making them a real possibility for an easy and fast weeknight meal. If you're cooking a dried bean that needs to be soaked beforehand, the first thing you do is take the beans out of the package and sort of sort through them to make sure that there's not any broken beans or pieces of rock. Beans grow in sandy soil, and sometimes some of that gets into the bag. You can rinse the beans and then put them in a bowl and cover them with water. You can leave the beans on your counter for as little as an hour or as long as overnight. Once you finish soaking the beans, you can pour the beans and the water that you soaked them in directly into a pot, and then add more water to cover the beans. This is a great time to add flavorings. I love adding a couple of garlic cloves, maybe half an onion, and a little bit of lemon or lime zest to infuse the beans with a lot of flavor. You can also add some salt now and pepper if you'd like it. Once you've added everything you want to your beans to flavor them, turn the stove on. You want it at about a medium heat, and you want the water to come to a boil, but then you want to turn it down so that they cook more gently on the stove. If you look at the date on that package and it was a long time ago, you're probably going to end up cooking it for several hours. The fresher the bean, the faster it will cook. Every half an hour or so, just take a bean out of the pot and test it. You can push it between your fingers or try to eat it. When it's reached a texture that you really like, they're done. You might have to add more water to the pot as the beans cook. They will soak up the water and expand, and some of the water will evaporate. So you have this pot of beans. What do you do with them? The simple thing to do is just to eat them with some rice and roasted vegetables, and you'd have a delicious and nourishing meal. You could also take some of those beans and puree them into a dip or spread to use in tacos or with crackers or vegetables. The final thing you can do with them is saute them in a pan. The water evaporates and the skin crisps up, and you can season them to make them taste really delicious.